quick look at Venus there. Checking up on that every couple weeks. But yeah, you saw earlier we had some pretty cool fall colors here. We started out 29 degrees here this morning, so we're finally getting some cool weather in this part of Texas. This will be kind of a quick presentation because I'm in the middle of a big contract programming project, and you can see some of that right there. Working on some weather data processing, so I'm going to have to get back to that in about 5 or 10 minutes. But plus, we are kind of running through kind of a fair weather pattern in this part of the country. But we do have a Pacific system moving onshore, and we can see that in California here. And one of the characteristics that we see is in the San Joaquin Valley through here, northwest winds, especially around the Fresno area right there. And we've got gusty winds right here around Merced. And when we see that, that's a good sign that we have Pacific air starting to move in. And then we have southerly winds here at Tonopah in Vegas. So this all kind of paints the picture of maybe a front working through Southern California. And let's see on the GFS, do we actually have that? Yeah, we've got kind of a weak front, maybe like that. It's hard to tell. It's not quite synced up with the upper level patterns right there. But based on what I saw off the surface charts and this little bit of thickness gradient back here, that's probably our next system that will be in the plains in a couple days. We've got the lee side troughing set up across the central U.S. Warm air advection in place across the central plains right here. In fact, a pretty substantial area of it right through here. And then moving further east, we've got the big ridge in the Mississippi River Valley down through here and off in the New England area. Very deep storm system, got a 985 millibar low centered just south of Quebec City. And behind that, a very strong punch of cold air advection down the backside. And with that, getting quite a bit of blowing snow through here. Let's check out the satellite loops. Well, I don't have a loop here, but hang on, let me get rid of this. There we go. You can see a little bit better. This is showing upstate New York right here. And down here, New York City. And in through here, got a very strong northwest flow. So we're just blowing in the cold air and getting a little bit of lake effect snow off Lake Ontario and Lake Erie. And a lot of this spikily cumulonimbus pattern offshore, which is another sign of cold air advection. And let's look at that on the surface chart. So there we go. You can see that strong northwest flow. A lot of 20s and 30s. So we're going to place the front probably something like this coming through Maine. And believe it or not, the warm sector is moving into the Canadian Maritimes right through here. You can see up here in Nova Scotia, 55 degrees. 54 here in Prince Edward Island. And that's actually warmer than what we have all the way down in Florida. Warmer than Orlando. Quite a difference there. So the warm sector is up there in the Canadian Maritimes. And we would actually place the front maybe something like that there. So north of that, got east-northeast flow ahead of the warm front, and south of that, some of the cool tropical air coming up from the south. So not a whole lot going on in the central part of the country itself. Infrared imagery looking like this. This is sensitive to the surface temperatures, and you can see the lakes are showing up very clearly. Very warm lakes, radiating heat up to the satellite. And a lot of times when we have stratus moving in from the Gulf, we look for the lakes to just disappear on the loops. And when we see that, that's when we know that there's stratus moving in. Because a lot of times that stratus, as it moves in, it will have similar temperature to what we have at the ground. So it can be very hard to distinguish. So when the lakes are extinguished, that means the stratus is on its way. The other tool that we use for that is multispectral imagery, and maybe that's something we can cover in an upcoming WEBCAST here. So let me check over here and make sure our audio is okay. Well, I was surprised we got 10 people. Usually it's kind of slow here on the weekend. That's good. I like to see the numbers up like that. So let's go into our forecast over the next week. Got Thanksgiving coming up here. I'm going to switch over to the thickness chart. There we go. Okay, we did the analysis on that for this evening. Going into Monday, we can see the Pacific system moving inland into the Four Corners area. So going to have probably a front kind of like that. And east of that, we've got the lee side trough in place in Colorado. So then by Tuesday, this is going to be around the time of the evening webcast on Tuesday. We're going to see a cold front extending from Kansas City all the way down to Wichita Falls, down to Midland, Texas. And ahead of that, we may see a chance of some storms developing in the I-35 corridor. Now, whether we're going to have storms is going to depend a lot on the moisture. What kind of moisture surge are we going to get ahead of that system? Well, let me set the chart up here. Okay, here's Sunday. Going into Monday, here comes the moisture. Then on Tuesday morning, we've got 60s coming all the way up to Dallas. And then by evening, we've got 63 at Dallas and 64, 66 in the I-10 area. So we may have to think a little bit about showers and thunderstorms on Tuesday night here. So it looks like that'll blow through East Texas Tuesday night and then be in the Mississippi River Valley on Wednesday. And it looks like the moisture actually does kind of weaken a little bit as it moves eastward. So most of the risks for severe weather are going to be around Louisiana and East Texas, kind of like that. And I'm thinking probably marginal severe weather, so I wouldn't worry too much. And there it goes. The actual low-pressure system itself moves into the Great Lakes. So another round of some snow showers for upstate New York. Then we get another system moving across Kansas here around Friday. That looks even weaker. And then for next weekend, we've got a pretty potent system moving inland. So look at these very large pressure falls across the Rocky Mountain region. Got a 995 millibar low over New Mexico here. And behind that, a very large area of cold air advection. So how does that play out? Well, looks like it moves into the Great Plains on Tuesday. And remember, we need to be looking at the thickness contours where we have the thickness bands. And that's pretty far south. This is telling us that the front is probably down around I-10. So let me draw that real quick. This looks like probably a pretty potent system here. Looking at Tuesday, 29th of November. And then north of that, we've got an occlusion kind of like that. Now, when we have a warm front, assuming we have enough moisture, the area along and north of the warm front is a prime area for severe weather. So we'll have to keep an eye on this for Tuesday and Wednesday next week. And then it looks like that's going to push eastward on Wednesday. Frontal system looking kind of like this. Warm front over Alabama into Mississippi. So we're going to have to watch for severe weather shifting out there, possibly towards Georgia. And then as that moves eastward, we get the cold air advection into the central U.S. 540 line coming all the way down to Oklahoma City. So we're probably talking about 30s and 40s for afternoon highs. And I don't think we have too many viewers in the Northeast, but I'll just pan this up for your benefit. This is on Friday the 2nd. It's like another round of winter weather in that part of the country. And looks like we've got another system coming up for the 4th. This is getting way out there. You can see that band right there, freezing precipitation in the Oklahoma Panhandle. And then I'll quickly shift eastward, and now the 540 line is all the way down to Dallas. So looks like we're going to start seeing a trend towards cooler weather here coming up at the start of next month. So I think that's about all I got. Let me check the chat feed. Looks like no problems there. Anyway, let's see here. Let me get my frames set up here real quick. All right, I think that'll do it for me. I hope I'll see you tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, and have a good evening.